John Kaisen, John Zen'in, John Jujutsu, and John Rabbit, aka Rabbit247. Out of these 4 monolithic characters that the Jujutsu Kaisen fandom has concocted inside their lobotomized minds, John Kaisen sticks out the most out of these 4 to me. Now, it's not because of the memes or the joking power scaling videos or anything like that. Despite what you may have thought when you first saw this thumbnail and title, this isn't really a gag video, so to speak, nor is it one where I speak ill of Lobotomy Kaizen or anything that the community has done in regards to John Kaisen. No. What I'm going to talk about in regards to John Kaisen is an issue regarding Jujutsu Kaisen as a series and how he is emblematic of that major issue, in my opinion. Now, without wasting your time, let me just get into it. For people who've actually read and watched the series Jujutsu Kaisen, one of the actual legitimate critiques you can pose towards the series as a shounen is its lack of world building, kind of. As well as, filler between arcs where we see character relationships develop. But in regards to world building specifically, the critique is in regards to how isolated the world of Jujutsu Kaisen feels in regards to its story. And what I mean by that is everything that we are shown is almost exclusively directly linked to the characters we focus on and the narrative itself. There are no nameless fodders in the background, there aren't any random jobbers, at least in the manga for the most part, outside of, the Zenin clan massacre and the Kakura unit. That's pretty much it. I've talked about this issue before in past videos, but when I talk about worldbuilding JJK, what I mainly mean is the main story, one of the most important locations of the entire series is Jujutsu Tech and Kyoto School. And if you go by Phantom Parade, there's also the Fukuoka branch. But, there are these huge institutions that we see, and these are massive buildings with massive facilities. So there must be huge amounts of students and children and sorcerers overall to warrant this large facilities. But we don't see that. We see max 15, 20 students in the entire series. And you have to think Jujutsu Society is the world's best hidden secret, so to speak. But there should be more sorcerers, there should be more nameless background characters, as well as windows and stuff like that, but we don't really see them, right? I mean, as I say, we see how big these schools are. Yeah, Megami, Nobara, Yuji, Maki, Panda, Idumaki, Yuta, Hikari Kurara. That's about 10 students for, just look at the size of it from the outside. Jesus Christ, 10 students for all of this is genuinely ridiculous. Yaga is somehow the principal of these students and this massive building, but we don't see any of them. But there was one exception, which you can probably guess, because the title and the thumbnail, to this lack of background characters, specifically in regards to, sorcerers and students and stuff. And obviously, I'm talking about John Kaisen. Now, this is exclusive to the JJK Zero movie. And in my opinion, I think most people would agree, I don't think anyone would disagree, that the JJK Zero movie is better overall, but specifically much better in regards to this form of, world building and just kind of character moments because of them, because of the background fodders and students and stuff. In the manga, the night parade is pretty much 5, 6, 7 pages. That's literally it. In the movie, we got so many more new moments with sorcerers we know from the main series. Ino shows up, kills some curses. So does Meme, Kusakabe. Nanami has a great moment, okay? I want to pick out Nanami specifically first before about John Kaisen. But the moment with Nanami is such a great one, in my opinion, because we see a bunch of random fodders, nameless students in the uniform, probably don't even have curse techniques, and they are just getting destroyed by a curse. And Nanami comes in and saves them, right? Which kind of blends in with his philosophy of, children should be children, let the adults do all the messed up stuff because of his, backstory with Haibara and stuff. This character moment is really good for Nanami. And then he hits the Black Flash record and stuff, which is really cool, right? And it adds so much more to Nanami and the world itself, because these students call Nanami by name, which kind of gives Nanami this air of being a known figure in the Jujutsu world. It's a weird comparison, but it kind of reminds me of Titanfall and Halo. And what I mean by that is, when you're playing Titanfall or Halo, if a random soldier sees you, they'll go, oh my god, that's a pilot. Oh my god, that's Master Chief. We're going to be saved. It's all good now. Nanami has that same air about him, that he is such a big deal. He is a grade 1 sorcerer, and he's going to save the day. All these are random fodders. We will never know these characters' names or anything like that, but they all know Nanami because he's such a big deal. And we don't get that about Nanami in the main series. We know he's a grade 1 sorcerer. We know they're supposedly a big deal, but outside of named characters and stuff, he's an anime. We don't see him in that light, but he is like a Master Chief of JJK. But we only get that in the JJK Zero movie, which I think didn't have this problem of like lacking background characters to help set up character moments, or just background characters in general. As I said, in the manga, all these character moments like that I've put on screen, like Ino, Meme, etc., Kusakabe, the goat, Nanami, of course, that big one that I just mentioned, those do not exist in the manga, partly because those characters didn't exist yet. JJK Zero was made at a time when all the characters that you saw were half developed, and the characters we didn't see didn't exist yet. Like Gojo can teleport people, and there's like no domains, no like anti-domain or anything like that. It's clearly a very different power system, just a different, it's like good time capsule, right? And as a result, because there aren't any characters or anything like that, the Night Parade is kind of like a background event. As I say, it's only a handful of pages. I could probably fit all of them on screen now, to be honest. So the Night Parade doesn't feel like a big deal. All we see in the manga is Gojo messing with Miguel a little bit for a couple of pages, as well as Ichiji stepping up to Mimiko Nanako, despite we know for a fact like he's a window and he can only pretty much set up barriers. Yes, Gojo trusts him, but he also said he was like, shouldn't be a sorcerer. So it's kind of weird that he's stepping up to these curse users. But as I said, JJK Zero is kind of like a time capsule of what JJK Zero was and what JJK could have been, because there's a lot of different parts and unfinished parts to it. But as I said, because those characters don't exist, we don't get those character moments, and we don't see as many nameless fodders really, and we don't actually see any real fighting of the Night Parade against cursed spirits for that matter. It's just a background event. The manga itself just focuses more so on Yuta and Geto for obvious reasons. As I said, since it's specific to the JJK Zero manga, it goes to show that JJK, throughout since its conception really, has kind of struggled with showing us the sorcery world. Like, they talk about Jujutsu Society is such a big deal, and the big clans, 3 big clans and stuff like that we're not really shown too much of as well. Like, it's talked about, it's so ingrained into modern day society, it's such a big deal, and we never see that. It just goes to show that Gege hasn't struggled with that since JJK Zero. However, there is a little asterisk here, because one thing that he has clearly improved upon is this, because in Modulo, I feel like, he has significantly improved with these uses of background characters and just kind of making the world feel more alive. Because as I say, in the main series, Jujutsu like society feels like 30 people, except with the exception of JJK Zero, because the Night Parade feels like an actual war kind of thing, which I think is really cool. In Modulo, we see tons of like obviously Sumerians and stuff, but another good example of like background characters being shown, like sorcerers specifically, is when Yuji shoots piercing blood to all like the people kind of spectating Dabura and stuff who are in the area. He knocks all of them out, and we see all these nameless fodders go down. On one hand, it goes to show like how much stronger Yuji is now at this point, and it makes it feel as if Jujutsu Society is a big deal, and it's grown, and there's, they're all in like suits and swords, and that one kind of looks like they're related to Miwa. It makes the world feel more alive, because, there's more people in the world. And on top of that, even just outside of those sorcerers, we see like the group of kind of like heads watching the Dabura fight through a hologram, and we see them earlier watching the fight with the old man as well, with Maru. Like, the world just feels more alive in JJK Zero and Modulo, because the main issue and critique that people did pose, and I pose as well, to the main series of Jujutsu Kaisen, is that there is always this common theme of Jujutsu Society as a whole being talked about, yet we don't really see it. We see it in such a vacuum. I think that's a better way to describe it. We only see Jujutsu Kaisen in a vacuum of the characters' stories, right? We see Yuji being Sukuna's vessel and stuff, etc., blah, 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 but we don't see much going on in the background, so to speak. And this is an issue that is kind of universal in regards to the main series. Now, to tie this back to John Kaisen, the reason I think he specifically popped up in the way that he did as like a meme, with all the other ones, like for example John Rabbit, John Jujutsu, or Uncle Joey, or, John Zenin, they all have their own individual reasons for being like memeified and stuff, right? You have like the rabbits just doing sick kung fu moves that they have no right doing to like Toji, and doing backflips in the Kirara fight and stuff, which is cool, and it makes them stand out and makes them feel like their own individual characters. Like, it makes it feel like the rabbit like has a personality, which is kind of cool, which is why they get memed on and brought up a bunch, right? John Jujutsu, it's just a humorous moment. He feels like one of the ninjas that went to go fight Madara, like the dude who used the lightning sword. John Jujutsu, is that his name? John Jujutsu? Whatever, the Zenin bald-headed guy with like a stick. He does all these nice flourishes just to get one tap by Maki, so people made note of him because it was a funny moment, right? It was good. And obviously people remember, is it John Zenin? Because he just looks like, a couple squiggles, which is fine. He's just like a background like character that's on screen for barely any frames, but because of how he looks, he looks pretty goofy. That's why he got memeified. The reason I think John Kaisen got memeified, All these names are so friggin' stupid, dude. The reason I think he's became, you know, kind of a funny name to bring up in regard to like the Jujutsu Kaisen fandom is because, you know, he is kind of the opposite of what we see in the main series. He's clearly fighting like a grade 3, grade 2 curse, and he is going all out, right? Which is like what most people would be like if you got put in the JJK world. You'd be a fodder with no CT, so you'd have to kind of go all out against this random friggin' curse, right? That's why he sticks out so much. He's a random fodder that has to go all out against a random grades 10 million, and because of that, he blew up, and it's really cool to see. From that like quick 3-4 second clip, he became like another part of like Lobotomy Kaizen, which I think is pretty cool. But as I said, I think the reason he blew up is just because we don't see anyone else like him. We don't see random sorcerers going all out. Every sorcerer we see fighting pretty much outside of like the Kakuru unit pretty much all have names. We don't really have like nameless sorcerers. Even like Druve, characters who we don't even see fight, we have their names. For the most part, there isn't like a nameless sorcerer besides the Chinese sorcerer that Sukuna apparently fought. But we know everyone's name except for John Kaisen, right? He's just a randomer that had to go 120% against this thing, which I think is really cool. If you couldn't tell, for the most part, this is just a yap session, but I thought there is a genuine critique that I feel is pretty apt in regards to Jujutsu Kaisen. I've talked about before in a couple previous videos. The world is too heavily focused around the main characters, which isn't a bad thing. It's a very character-driven story. But as a result of that, moments like the Nanami moment expanded upon. Like, if that's how they react to Nanami, how would they react to Gojo in the Night Parade? How would they react to seeing him body Miguel? That's like moments I want to see. Like, for example, the way Hikari describes Gojo when he's having the conversation with Yuji. Oh, every sorcerer's heard of Gojo. Yeah, but I want to see a nameless fodder react to Gojo, you know? That's what I want to know. This is, as I say, it's a random, stupid video, but let me end the video with posing you a question and let me know if you agree down below. Do you think Jujutsu Kaisen not necessarily lacks world building, because there is stuff there, like we know of the 3 clans, we know of inherited techniques and the Heian era, we know of them, but we haven't got a lot of depth to them. So do you think JJK needs more background characters, and do you think it needs a bit more world building, like in regards to maybe the Gojo clan? What's the Gojo clan like outside of Gojo? Well, Satoru Gojo, you know, we don't really know. What's the Kamo clan like? Because we only kind of see it towards the end. What was the Zenin clan like before the massacre, you know? Granted, we can imagine that one. It probably wasn't very nice, but you get what I'm saying. Let me know if you agree down below that JJK needs some more world building. And yeah, here's my doodles. Hopefully see you in the next one. Peace. Also, if you go to my Patreon, I'll make 10 more videos about Kusakabe. Peace.